Hey there guys, I'm going to be doing wrestling underrated and overrated. And yes, I'm doing wrestlers, I'm not just doing WWE, I'm going to include WWE, AEW, and I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of Impact Wrestling on the end. I'm not doing properly rated people, I've just chose a selected few amount of people that I think are either overrated or underrated, and I'm going to explain why I think that. So let's get into it. Wait, no, not yet. Remember, this is my opinion. You do not have to agree. There is some people that might be my kind of style of wrestling that I like watching that you don't, and there might be some people that I don't like wrestling that you do. But that's completely fine. And if you want to tell me down in the comments that you think differently, I don't care. First up, I'm pretty sure everybody's going to agree with me on this, but this is Montez Ford. I know some people won't because some people are saying Angelo Dawkins is more talented. Montez Ford is an absolute beast. Some people say that they remind him of, he reminds them of The Rock. He is extremely charismatic, and that in-ring talent you can't deny. If you think I'm messing around, watch his Elimination Chamber match. He was the absolute star of the Elimination Chamber, the men's Elimination Chamber, the latest one that we've had. He looked the best. He caused the greatest moments of it all. He really looked good. And since he had such an amazing performance, everybody's talking about Montez Ford, how he's the next big thing, and they didn't really capitalize on it, but I think they're just testing him right now. He is a part of a test. They are currently seeing if he can play a heel. But I really expected them to give him this nice push, and I still think it's coming, but right now he is underrated because he's not being given the credit that he deserves, and he's definitely not being given the booking that he deserves. Because let's be honest, this whole Hurt Business 2.0 type of business where they're with Bobby Lashley, they're kind of just on the side. Bobby Lashley's the main guy. He's the guy talking. He's getting all the TV time. They're just kind of standing off in the background. So Montez Ford is definitely underrated. I kind of went overboard and got way too many wrestlers on here, so I don't want this video to be so long, so I'm going to try and speed through these just a little bit. Because y'all know I like to talk. Alright, now I'm going to try and go back and forth until the end. I do have a few more underrated wrestlers than I do overrated. First up on the overrated, this might shock some people. This is the family, Tony D'Angelo and Channing Stacks. Honestly, I don't know what else to say. I just don't find them entertaining. Their tag title reign was absolutely horrible, not interesting at all. Tony D'Angelo, he's not too bad, but I just don't really care for neither of them, honestly. But Tony is definitely the more talented. But as a tag team, don't find them interesting, don't find their TV time entertaining at all, so overrated. And I just gotta throw out something else. Just because I say somebody is overrated doesn't mean that they're a horrible talent. Some people think that. That just means I don't think they deserve what they're getting. I guess that is what I'm trying to say. Now for underrated, we have Baron Corbin. Now, if you don't watch NXT, do not say anything about this. You just gotta trust me or start watching NXT. Then you'll know what I'm talking about. Baron Corbin is looking great over in NXT. He is putting these NXT guys over while looking great himself in the process. And I used to be a Baron Corbin hater, and he is really starting to grow on me because of how good he is doing in NXT. His promo work, great. His in-ring work is good too. And yeah, just overall, I'm really enjoying his NXT time right now. So he is underrated. Next up is Indy Hartwell, and this one was kind of one I was on the fence with. I have her as overrated, but I honestly don't know people's opinions about her. I don't think she ever deserved NXT Women's Champion whenever she got that. I was actually pretty mad whenever she got the NXT Women's Champion. I don't really see that much talent in her, and I hate to just be like that, but her in-ring talent, not that good. Her promo work, boring. I mean, I just don't really see WWE being able to do anything with her because she has nothing special about her that's different than anybody else to make her be over. And honestly, I don't see her going anywhere more than just sitting on the sideline for Candice LeRae. But I don't know if you would consider that overrated because some people do love her, so that's kind of why I put her on here. This next one I'm so strong about because I love Chase U. I'm biased because Chase U is just my thing. I love it. Thea Hale is an absolute beast. I love her. She is great. Her character work is just amazing. And her in-ring work, for how young she is great. And just overall, I think it's something fun for NXT. And it is very entertaining. You need to watch NXT. If you don't watch NXT, you're crazy. Because that is, in my opinion, the best product of wrestling going right now. And if I'm being truly honest, Chase U is probably my favorite part about NXT. And so this one is definitely underrated. They deserve to be talked about more. Next up is Eddie Thorpe from NXT. I don't see anything in him. He is not very good in ring, and he's just not interesting at all. Not entertaining, not interesting. I just don't really like him. And I'm calling him overrated because of his booking. They were not so much right now, but when he first debuted, he was getting the TV time. So I'm saying he's more overrated when it comes to booking wise. Next up, we got the tag team that just debuted on the main roster. This is the Creed brothers, Brutus and Julius, and they are absolutely amazing. They had an amazing debut against the Alpha Academy, and I just feel like not enough people are talking about it. They're not really being talked about. And that Houston crowd, I don't like the Houston crowd at all. They got cheered up for Cody Rhodes, and then when the Creed brothers came out, they were silent. The Creed brothers deserve more than that. And I just feel like their in-ring work is just so good, and people just really aren't talking about them, so they're underrated. I see the Creeds elevating the WWE tag division to another level because that's been the weakest part of WWE in recent months. Next up is Roxanne Perez, and yes, I'm gonna say overrated. I know a lot of people are gonna get mad about this, but like I said, overrated means not that she has no talent. She definitely is talented. I just don't see her doing much because she doesn't really have anything special about her that nobody else has. I mean, being a big star in WWE, you have to have something really special about you to be able to be over just because of how much talent they have. But her finisher, the Pop Rocks, is pretty cool, but she's still overrated. Next up is Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, and they are extremely underrated. I don't know where they're at. I know they've been showing up a little bit, like for skits and stuff, but they should be women's tag team champions right now in the WWE. That division is absolutely horrible. Those titles are so worthless. And they would add value. The in-ring talent, definitely with Alba Fire, is out of this world, and the character work on both is just so good. Love that women's tag team. Next up for overrated is Sonya Deville. Whenever I talk about Sonya Deville, a lot of people get mad. They're like, she is a great talent. I don't see it. Her in-ring work is absolutely horrible. I mean, she is just not good. Her promos are pretty solid, and her character work's pretty good, but you gotta be pretty decent in ring. And unfortunately, she's just not. And she's just definitely not entertaining. Drew Gulak, the definition of underrated. He is a phenomenal in-ring talent, and he is putting in the work over there in NXT, and still nobody's talking about it. He did absolutely nothing on the main roster, and now he's coming down to NXT to elevate talent such as Charlie Dempsey. He's doing a great job at it, and he's putting on amazing matches in the process. So he's definitely underrated. And now we got Chuck Taylor. Wow, how fun. Exactly, nobody gets excited for Chuck Taylor, and somehow he still gets the TV time. I mean, there for a little bit, AEW was using him every single week, so he is definitely overrated when it comes to bookings. And he is holding back Trent so much. Trent is a phenomenal talent, and just Chuck Taylor's not. He's boring, and he's not that good in ring. I mean, he has nothing special about his in-ring work. And just please don't give him the microphone. It's not good. Next up is somebody who is an absolute amazing talent. This is Dijak, and nobody really talks about him. He did absolutely nothing on the main roster because we knew he was put in this stupid retribution, just horribleness. And he is over here having absolute bangers in NXT. Him and Ilya Dragunov went so well together, and that was a great feud. But yeah, he is severely underrated. Next up is Daniel Garcia, and yes, he is definitely extremely talented, but he is still overrated. Because, Lord, if I don't get mad when I'm scrolling on TikTok and I find one of those AEW ranking videos and Daniel Garcia comes up. Some people will put Daniel Garcia over somebody at the talent of Darby Allin, and it just makes me so mad. Daniel Garcia has nothing to compare against Darby Allin, but he is definitely talented. I just feel like people were really there for a little bit. People were really going crazy for Daniel Garcia. Next up is the underrated Viking Raiders. I think that they were cool, and then they started mixing up their names. Then they made them into a joke. Like when they were coming up from NXT, they looked like they were unstoppable. And then, like I said, they were turned into a joke that I didn't find funny. Because they had so much potential. And I feel like they're still scary now. They've definitely brought back up their intimidation, I guess you could say. Yet they just don't seem as dominant as they were coming up from NXT. Next up is a definite overrated one. This is Eddie Kingston. Some people just love Eddie Kingston. And that's like their favorite wrestler, and it just irritates me because how? What has he done that makes them your favorite wrestler? Yeah, his promos are pretty solid. His in-ring work is mid. He's kind of like a lazy worker. And his gimmick is not for me. I just don't really like him. Next, am I going to be biased? Yes, but Ricochet is a phenomenal talent. He's top 5 on my list right now for my current favorite wrestlers. He's like borderline 3, 2, 1. I can't decide. But I love Ricochet. And he hasn't reached full potential. He held the IC title, but his reign wasn't that good. They didn't let him keep it for too long. They didn't really hype it up that much. So, yeah, he's definitely underrated. Next up for overrated is Shotzi, and I cannot stand to watch her matches. She is just so messy in the ring, and she just messes up way too much. Her character work is phenomenal, and she's definitely entertaining, and she's definitely interesting, but her in-ring work is just not good at all. She's so sloppy. Next up for underrated is Nikki Cross, and my entire point for this is when she was with Sanity, she was such a cool character. She was actually kind of intimidating, yet kind of funny at the same time, and then they turned her into a superhero. And then now she's staring off into space, so they just don't know what they want to do with her. But personally, I do enjoy Nikki Cross. Next up for overrated, people are going to be so mad at me. I'm going Jay White. I'd never watched him in New Japan, and he was getting hyped up, and I just don't see what everybody's talking about. It could be because they're not using him properly in AEW. I don't know, because I don't know what talent he has. I was going by the word of mouth because everybody was saying how great he was. And I wasn't really impressed. He's definitely talented, but he doesn't meet my standards for what I had for him from what everybody was saying. Next up is one that is underrated. This is Zoe Stark, and she is just a phenomenal talent. She plays a phenomenal heel, and her in-ring work is great. And her future, I think it's bright. They paired her up with Hall of Famer Trish Stratus. And to be paired up with Trish, WWE must see something in her. Next up, I think his name is Matt Bernard. I don't really know. He's kind of like a Chuck Taylor except heel version. He just makes me mad. Don't give him the microphone. I can't understand a word he says. And he's just not entertaining. He's just one of those guys where whenever he's coming out to the ring and he has a match announced, I'm like, alright, I think I know which match I'm going to go get my shower during. Because it's like you're not going to be missing anything special because I just don't really enjoy what he does. Underrated is Andrade El Idolo. He is so extremely talented. I saw him as kind of like the new Eddie Guerrero, but of course it ended up being like Dominic, I guess you could say, taking that Eddie Guerrero role. But Andrade had the charisma right off the bat in NXT. He was rocking it out. And he has the potential to do it wherever he goes. It's just booking has just held him back. Nobody has booked him correctly and let him show what he's capable of. The next one kind of makes me mad. This is Evil Uno. This is when somebody says the best current Dark Order member is Evil Uno. And I'm like, no, he is the worst current Dark Order member. Yeah, he might look the coolest and look the most intimidating, but he is so bad in ring. I mean, you cannot watch one of his matches and say that's talent. Like, you won't find me ever saying that during one of his matches. So he's definitely overrated. Next up for underrated is Top Flight, and they are phenomenal talents. I mean, they do some crazy stuff, and it just seems like nobody ever talks about them. The only thing holding them back is injuries. Next up is, you call me crazy, Tony Nese. He is underrated. Tony Nese is phenomenal. He has the build to look intimidating, and the in-ring talent is definitely there, and I do think he has the charisma. Next up is probably the most overrated on this list. I could never connect with her, and this is Riho. I just don't, her in-ring work is not good. Her promos never happen, and her charisma is I'm gonna hop around and smile. And her entrance theme is weird. I don't know what her goal is. She acts like an anime character while I just don't really like her. And she just can't compare to anybody else in that division. They have so much talent on that women's roster to be pushing Riho. Next up is one I'm a huge fan of. This is Matt Taven, and his charisma is amazing. His in-ring work is very good. And he just hasn't got that push, and nobody ever really talks about him. Next up for underrated, this one is extremely underrated. This is Swerve Strickland, and I don't know what WWE was thinking when they released him, because every single match he has put in AEW, he is putting on an absolute banger. I mean, I love Isaiah Swerve. He has so much charisma. And like I said, he's one of the best in-ring workers in all of AEW. Now I'm going to end it off with 4 underrated women. We got Mercedes Martinez. I've always been a huge fan of hers. I believe she is very intimidating, and she's very good in ring. And she has lots of charisma. So I definitely like Mercedes Martinez. And I just feel like nobody ever talks about her. Next up is Kylan King, and you might not even know who she is. She's from Impact Wrestling, and she is a phenomenal talent. I have seen her wrestle in person. I've actually watched one of her matches live, and she had a banger match at WrestleCade. I don't remember if it was at the Ladies Night Out event, but she is phenomenal in ring, and she has amazing charisma as well. So she's definitely a rising star to look out for. Next up is Athena, also known as Ember Moon in the WWE, and she is a phenomenal talent. In NXT, she was putting on amazing matches, and she was so over. And then she comes to the main roster, and she's not properly utilized at all. And I still don't think she's got what she deserves in AEW. The last person and the last underrated wrestler is Alicia Edwards, and she is a phenomenal heel over there in Impact Wrestling. This is Eddie Edwards' wife, and she has pretty good in-ring talent, but the best part about her is that she is a phenomenal heel. So I definitely think she's somebody that could make an appearance in maybe AEW.